You're listening to the Wise Women Podcast, Season 2, Episode 24. I'm your host, Alisha Wilford, founder of Yoke and Abundance, a creative leadership coaching business. This podcast is designed to inspire by introducing you to creative women living abundantly. I hope you'll savor this special panel conversation on goals as much as I have. Y'all, we've tried something really different in today's episode, and I cannot wait for you to give it a listen. I've created a panel talking about setting and achieving goals. You'll hear from Victoria Brownlee. She was our first podcast guest. Sarah Keel, whose Wise Women interview you've seen on the blog, and Jada Monica Drew from episode 19. I wanted you to hear from these women because I've seen all of them accomplish really big, beautiful things that make a difference in our community. There is a quote by a man named Earl Nightingale that says, "People with goals succeed because they know where they're going. It's as simple as that." You know, as a coach, it's my job to help you find clarity so that you can know where you're going, work with you to build that map and chart the course and help keep you accountable to those goals. All of which things we'll be talking about on today's episode. So if you're looking for clarity so that you can align your vision with your purpose and passion to achieve your dreams, let's schedule a free 30-minute discovery call. I have room for 4 clients in February, so let's talk. I promise you'll go further, faster with a coach. To schedule your free discovery call, visit www.yokeandabundance.com. Now, I'm really excited to share this panel with you and can't wait to know what you thought of the format. After you listen, leave a comment on the website and let us know what you thought and if you'd like to hear more episodes like this one. Now, a word from our sponsor. This week's sponsor is Triad Local First, a nonprofit, membership-based organization in Greensboro, North Carolina with members throughout the Triad. Triad Local First members include independent, locally owned retail shops, real estate agents, insurance brokers, marketing and advertising firms, accountants, dentists, restaurants, farmers, breweries, and more. TLF's mission is a commitment to building a strong local economy and a vibrant, unique community. For more information on how to support local independent businesses throughout the year, visit www.triadlocalfirst.com. Okay, so thank you all so much for being here tonight. I wanted to start by saying, one of my favorite authors is Antoine de Saint-Exupéry. He wrote Le Petit Prince, The Little Prince. It's one of my all-time favorite children's books. So you might be, what does he have to do with goal setting, right? But he said, a goal without a plan is just a wish. I'm sure you all have, many of you listening too, have heard that saying, right? How many times do we say, I want to do that, but we don't put action and intention behind that thing that we want to do? So I wanted to have this podcast here in January, while lots of people still have the idea of resolutions and vision boards and goal setting at the forefront of their mind. So I've brought together 3 people who I know have achieved big things and who I'm sure you all probably got there with some level of goal setting and intention. So I know that you're great folks to talk to as we talk about goal setting. And in the room today we have Jada Monica Drew, Sarah Keel, and Victoria Brownlee. And before I introduce them, I want to tell you all something I heard about resolutions that blew my mind when I heard it. So I took a positive psychology certification course back in, I graduated from that this past March, and I learned about this poll that was done in 2012 that surveyed 3,036 adults who identified weight loss as a top resolution for the new year. And in fact, health and money accounted for 2/3 of all resolutions. But it said that 45% of Americans make New Year's resolutions. But of those 45%, only 8% of those people are actually successful in achieving their resolutions. Now, this is the really interesting part of that, is that they also found that those who explicitly make New Year's resolutions are actually 10 times more likely to achieve their resolution than those who don't. So where's the disconnect, right? Like, why do some people hit their goals when they make a resolution and then only 8% actually follow through with those? In my positive psychology handbook, a quote that I took away that I love is that most people fail to make a positive change because the goal they set is shoddy. So they make a people problem out of a process problem.
That makes sense.
Yeah, okay.
Wow.
Before I get into some big, deep questions about goal setting, I would love it if each of you could share who you are and one big goal you have your heart set on for 2019, and one thing that's maybe tripped you up from achieving your goals in the past. Who would like to start?
I'll start.
Okay.
So one goal that I'm really excited about, I have a few speaking engagements coming up this year that I'm really excited about, and I want them to go well. So I've put in place some strategies, some practice that I want to work towards to make those successful. And in the past, my mindset. Mindset. Mm-hmm. And truly believing that what I set forth to accomplish, that I will accomplish it, and feeling like I was worthy enough to accomplish it.
Yes. And for those of you that are thinking, who was that? And that voice might sound familiar. That is Victoria Brownlee. She was our very first podcast episode, and so we are so excited to have you back. So thank you.
Thank you.
I'll go next.
Who you are?
I am Sarah. This is Sarah. And one big goal for 2019 has been on my list for several years. It has been to officially launch my photography business. I have been playing at it for about 14 years now. I think I'm good. I have a perfectionism issue, and that's what's held me back a lot, not only with this, but with other endeavors as well. So much like Victoria's mindset situation or I guess viewpoint of her goals, I just need to get off of the getting ready to get ready phase that I find myself stuck in a lot. But with finally having the space to dedicate to shooting products and having a dedicated office space coming up in the next few weeks, that will really help me achieve my goal.
Excellent. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I'm Jada Monica Drew, and one of the big goals that I have this year is to blog monthly. I'm an author, but I'll write a bunch at once. I'll have these audacious big goals to, get this big thing or a toolkit or book done within months, and because I'm so excited about it. But I really want to consistently blog because it helps me with reflection, and then it also it helps me to really take the tools that I've developed within the business and share it with people in different industries. So I'm going to force myself to do that by incorporating something I haven't done in the past, which is to schedule specific time. And I'm very optimistic with time, so real time, not Jada time, to get it done. So it wouldn't be I won't do, let's say, I'll schedule an hour to blog for this one blog, and knowing that it takes me a very long time because I'm a perfectionist.
Right.
And I like to do research and maybe call a few people to get their opinion. So to schedule some real time and not to pack it all into, I'm going to do it all now, but to schedule it throughout the month.
Yes. Excellent. Thank you all so much for sharing that. Can you tell me, so how do you determine what it is that you believe is important enough to become a goal? So let's say it started in that wish phase. Like, I wish I had a photography business, or I wish I was speaking at a big international stage. We are giving a shout out to Victoria, who is going to be speaking in Australia this year internationally. How do you get to the point, Jada, where you say, I absolutely think it's a priority for me to blog monthly? Like, how do we arrive there at our goals? And how do we know it's something that we want and not something that we think we should be doing?
I would say it started with my core values. We did some work a while back on identifying core values and really coming from the place and looking at all of the structures in my life and all of my goals, staying true to myself and staying true to my core values. And that's where, and also I had to, when I reflected on last year, I was able to identify a few goals that weren't aligned with my core values. And so just being real clear on my core values so that I can stay true to myself and then set the goals.
Oh, that's gold. Because I haven't really sat down and nailed those core values down for myself yet. I think I know where I want to go. And like you said, there's been several past endeavors where I thought that's where I wanted to go because someone told me it was great, or someone, showed me a great path for business, and it didn't feel right to me. Like, that's great for you, but it didn't resonate with me on the level it needed to resonate with. So for photography, I feel like I want to take images that inspire people, like that bring a sense of calm, that inspire people to travel, to go different places, to step out of their comfort zone. So ironically, not launching this before now, I haven't been able to step outside my own comfort zone. So I like her idea, or the idea in general, of finding out my core values and nailing it down, because even though I love taking pictures and I love being part of that process, I really need to figure out who my customer is going to be.
Yes.
I found out the hard way I don't like weddings. I love attending weddings. I don't like being a photographer at weddings. It's just the stress level is too high, and that's not my ideal situation.
Yes.
So I learned that the hard way, but it turned out okay. But I learned I didn't want to do that anymore.
I wonder why.
Oh man! If I know you, it's one thing. If I don't, I don't know about that.
Jada, how about you?
I've learned to continue the things that make me happy and to delete the things that don't. And I think it's taken a while to not just figure it out, but like you mentioned earlier, sitting down with your values. If it doesn't align with your values, don't do it, or you may do it differently, or begin to shed it off a bit more, because you have the necessities, you have the things that will make your personality grow, the things that will grow your company, and then you have those things that hit to the core of your passion. The things that really make your heart beat, the things that make you love to get up in the morning, no matter what it looks like outside or how cold it is. And so I had to think about the things that really and truly made me happy, and then align that with value, align it with vision.
Thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome. Thank you for asking. These are some great questions to help us to continue to align.
Yes.
Oh, yes.
I love what you just said, aligning value with vision. And, we are recording today in my office. Normally I record in my living room, but what you all have the benefit, or might be a little scary, of seeing is that I have a big pleasure 6-foot long whiteboard with my 2019 goals. And after I set those goals in different category around health, my career and business, spirituality, finances, family, learning, and relationships. And there's quite a few things on that list that I want to hit for this year. I stood back and thought to myself and had to ask the question, are these driving my dreams? So are these things that I want to be working towards this year actually taking me closer to my big life dreams and wishes? And how am I going to get there if I am, or how not? So I'll probably be going back through that. And you're seeing past year's vision boards and this year's vision board. I mean, does everybody in here, are we all vision boarders?
I actually hosted like a mini like
awesome.
Vision board party last night. And it was fun. Just about 3 of us just sitting down, chatting and reflecting and dancing and analyzing lyrics of songs.
Oh, yes.
What does that
And
mean?
making
Oh,
vision
yes.
boards.
Yes.
And so we were just kind of talking about vision boards that we've done in the past and things that we've kept. And there's one method, and I wish I could remember the creator's name, but there's a method of creating spokes instead of using magazines. And you start off with a spoke in the middle that has the kind of like your theme of the year and the year, what year it is. And then you create these spokes. So I'm looking at your vision board, Alisha. You have health, career, spirituality, finances, family as kind of those topic areas. And then you create spokes to figure out exactly what you want to do in those areas. And the suggestion, this was about 3 years ago when I did this, was to then go back and eliminate everything that you know that you probably will not get to this year, or to segment it per quarter. And so I've started to do that each year along with the magazines. I love the magazines. I love, the visual and the cutting aspect. And the kinesthetic piece. So that's been helpful for me too. And I've learned that I've kept the same spoked wall posted, and I'll either add things or check things or delete. Yeah. That's reminding me of the spokes.
Yeah.
That's a good idea.
I like that.
And what I need to do with the goals that I have written out is go write my by when dates on there as well, and kind of work backwards in my calendar of what is this going to look like. And I don't know if anybody has ever had this experience, but the very first year that I really did a legit intentional vision board, I mean, I hit all the things that year.
Yes.
I mean, it was powerful.
Yes.
And then last year, I did not find that man I was looking for.
It took a hiatus.
I didn't hit the income goals I was hoping for. I didn't hit... and it wasn't that I didn't achieve goals last year. I absolutely did. Did I hit the level of goals that I did that first go around? No. So I kind of stepped back in my vision board this year and really tried to get back to the core of kind of like that Danielle Laporte desire map type of idea of what is the core desired feeling I'm really going for. In health, I want to feel strong. I want to feel healthy. I want to feel energetic. I want to feel beautiful. In career and business, I want to feel successful. I really want to write that book. And it's not so much about the business in that case. It's like doing the thing that I said I would do. So my vision board is about conjuring that feeling more than it is about achieving the thing. Has anybody played with that in their vision boards before?
This year is the year. That feeling, that's what I've been focused on in every area. I was at the first year I did a vision board. It was just I put up pictures, and it was basically based on what society said I needed. I need abs, so let me get a picture and put it on my vision board. And so instead of everything working out that year, it really didn't. I put it up, and I just kind of put it in the corner. And then I started finding accountability groups and was able to connect with women in different areas. And so last year was a little bit better. But this year I said, I'm going to focus on that feeling. How do I want to wake up and feel every day about all the different parts of my life? And I want to embody that feeling every single moment. And so I gave my board this feeling, this theme feeling, and just... along with my board, I've identified affirmation statements. I am in each area. And a girlfriend gave me the idea of recording those and listening to them daily. So I'll never forget. the first of the year, I was in the room recording them over some music, and my mother was laughing at me. And so I started to get excited, and I was recording I am, and something that wasn't even a part of my goals. I said, I'm being asked to speak all over the country. And I just said it, and I've been listening to it since the first of the year. Mm-hmm. And then that opportunity came, and the opportunity came in Los Angeles, and then all over the world. And I put that in the recording. Wasn't even part of my goals, but it's just listening to that, training my subconscious mind to hear and feel those statements, to believe who I want, to believe what I want to accomplish.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, so powerful.
You're radiant.
Yeah.
Your vision.
Yes.
Well, okay, so that goes to something that they talk about in the positive psychology arena, in that it's really important to state your goals in the positive. Mm-hmm. So, I'm no longer going to drink Coke. That would not be a good thing to do, right? Because it takes more mental and physical energy to avoid something than it does to move towards something.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
So it's better to set your goals in the positive. Can anybody speak to that in their own life, of where they've seen that work?
In relationships.
Oh, can you share more about that?
Yeah, any relationship. Like, I think about how my mom, we're so much alike, right? So much so that we get on each other's nerves. Mm-hmm. But I think about how I've learned to share things with her, ask her for things, constructively criticize some things, that she may say, and I've changed the language, or even in business, when I'm teaching ways for people to communicate with each other, yes. I always lead with, the what are you working towards versus what are you working against?
Yes.
A lot of the beginnings of my work, particularly in leadership and diversity, I did a lot of work around anti-racism trainings. And I remember...
anti-racism trainings.
Anti-racism trainings. And I remember Professor at Guilford College, I was working there then, by the name of Tom Guthrie, and we were in a meeting, and he had mentioned, is there something else that we can say other than anti-racism? Because when you say anti, automatically that's negative language. Mm-hmm. Now, I remember my reaction to his statement was very I disagreed. I felt like, we're talking about anti-racism, we're building, the system where we're, breaking down systems of oppression and
call it what it is.
Yeah, call it what it is. And so just years later, I remember reflecting on it. Probably that week I went and sat down and I was like, can we talk more about this? Because it's interesting. I don't like it, but I feel like I need to listen. And now I get it, just in the work that I do. It just makes more human sense.
Yes.
Not saying that it's, we shouldn't say it, but the result, I think, is a big impact on how we communicate things, and the energy, like you mentioned, the energy that we put into it.
Mm-hmm. It's very much
Tom Guthrie.
Yeah, and it's very much law of attraction, right? Which you can say what you want about that, but that stuff works.
Well, and it's funny because I know two of us in the room have children. I don't know. Okay, so
two of the four.
I know with my kids, like the other day, my daughter took it upon herself to empty the dishwasher for me, and I was very excited because she took the initiative. However, several things were not where they should have been, and I got a little overly frustrated. I'm like, why is this here? The wrong drawer. But she didn't know. I mean, she thought she was doing a good deed for me. So I've noticed recently, especially with my 11-year-old, if you frame things in a positive manner, she is more likely to listen to you and actually learn from what you're telling her. So I led with, I really appreciate that you empty the dishwasher without me asking you to. She's like, great. And then a couple minutes later, I'm like, hey, can you get this bowl for me? Because she put it somewhere, and I literally had no clue where she put it. She put it in a different cabinet. I said, that's awesome. It goes here. So the next time you do this for me, if you see, here's the rest of the bowls, put it right here. And so today when I came home, she took it upon herself, again, to empty the dishwasher. And she put it in the right spot. Mm-hmm. So, and I've noticed with kids and sometimes coworkers as well, if you lead with an affirmative statement, it changes the entire tone of the conversation.
Yes.
So that's something that I'm really trying to be mindful of, how I approach people. how I air my grievances. And also in, dealing with just, some people are just negative. I think because it's a habit for them at this point. It's how they think of things, and it's how they've always thought of things. And, if I can turn their attention and not be dragged down by what I feel is negativity, but they just see it as normal, hopefully that will, make them feel like they can approach me to talk about their problems or their complaints, and hopefully they'll leave feeling a little better. But,
and sometimes I think, I think there are a group of people in the world that are always negative. And I think some people, based on their communication style and the way that they lead and their personality, they're always thinking about how to make things better. Yes. So even though they're leading with what I may think is negative, it may be they're leading with how they feel it can be better. And I think part of that is with the affirmation, even affirming what we believe is negative helps to move the conversation forward, even more. Yep. Which is hard to do. We have to train ourselves to think that way. And I have to train myself to think that way because it's very hard.
Yeah. I can relate to that. So I generally like to be as positive as an individual as I can. But if you start working with me on like a committee basis and you start bringing new ideas, for some reason my first initial reaction, at least internally, is no, we shouldn't do it that way. And I try to recognize that is just my knee-jerk reaction and not say it out loud. But I caught myself in a meeting today where there was new ideas and new excitement and new blood, and I'm like, I just gotta shut my mouth, because if I don't, they're gonna think I'm like a naysayer against the new ideas, and it's just that's my first reaction. So sometimes if I know that I'm going to be working with people on a committee type basis, I just tell them from the get-go, hey, I might come across as a little bit grinchy in the beginning when you present an idea. That can feel abrasive to you. Please know that I'm malleable and that I am looking towards the positive, but I have to prime myself and others for that reaction.
Yeah.
That's important, aligning expectations. It's so helpful in any relationship.
Yes.
Alignment.
Pre-training.
Maybe that should be my word for 2019.
Yeah. So, I love research. I don't know if you guys know this about me, but one of the things that was so cool to me about the positive psychology certification class I took through the Flourishing Center was the amount of research that they brought to back up the processes and ideas to lead a flourishing life. And we spent a lot of time talking about goals, and one of the studies we looked at was a meta-analysis done by Rose and Somerville in 2005, and it kind of the quote around that was, our biggest regrets are not from the things that we have done, but the things that we haven't done. We probably didn't need a really big meta-analysis to figure that out. But, what are some things that you're looking at in your life right now and you're like, I wish I've done X, Y, or Z?
I wish I had a clear career trajectory when I started my current job. I've been there for 14 and a half years. And I really didn't know what kind of vertical movement there was. There's plenty of lateral movement. I've moved laterally before and maybe again. But this company has a really awesome retention rate. And so that kind of impacts your ability to move upward within the organization. So that's kind of like a double-edged sword. And I've been feeling really stagnant the last few years. So I really, my regret at this point in my life, staring down 40 in the eyes, is I haven't mapped out my career as well as I should have. And part of that was because I thought for a while maybe I didn't want to do this, so I just kind of put that on the back burner. But the more I thought about it, I like the industry I'm in. I don't necessarily want to change that right now. But I don't also know what other opportunities are out there for me to grow into. So
this brings up something that I think is interesting from like that multi-passionate entrepreneur standpoint. You guys know where I'm going with this. So you have a goal, right, of really getting serious about your photography business. And I'm curious, as a multi-passionate entrepreneur, how much it matters. Like, how much does it truly...
How much does that goal matter?
Yeah, like, how much does the needing to have...
I think it matters to me from a giving back standpoint.
The photography or the work?
The photography.
Okay. So I'm wondering, how much does the having a clear career trajectory in the day job matter?
Right. And
if you're feeding your soul with this other passion.
And I thought that too. And it really confused me for a while, and it still does to a certain extent. Because part of what I like to do with my photography is do things free of charge for local nonprofits. Like, there are tons of nonprofits out there that don't necessarily have a line item for pictures. They're relying on outdated stock images or things that they rely on volunteers to take, which are perfect and great. But if you want that polished professional look that a lot of people are looking for when you apply for grants, when you go out for funding, your materials may not convey that, just based on the quality of what you're putting out there. So I've done work with some local nonprofits, and I really enjoyed it. Like, that to me was awesome, because they were just like, come take pictures. And they didn't have this grandiose expectation and the lists of 16 million things they wanted me to do. I'd still do that for them if they asked me to. But so I think part of it too is the perfectionism thing. But also because I don't not want to enjoy taking pictures again.
So are you saying you don't want that to be... You don't want to put the pressure on that? Can you break that apart for me a little more?
A couple of years ago, I started taking a lot of jobs on, photography-wise, and mostly for friends and friends of friends and family of friends and such. And it got to the point where I couldn't find the joy in it because I was getting mired down in the details. And when I look at a picture, like, I have to download things and wait a few days before I look at them again, because I will see everything that I think I missed, or see things that I wish I had shot differently. Right. Part of that's learning. But it got to the point where I just didn't want to do it anymore. So, waking up every day and living your passion and doing the things that bring you joy, it wasn't bringing me joy. So I put the camera down for a couple years. And then I realized I missed it. So we're talking about goal planning. I realized maybe I need to scale back. If I want to do this as a full-time job, maybe I need to dissect it differently, or look at it differently, or rescale my plan. And I think I tried to bite off too much too soon for having 2 small kids and a job and a husband back in school and the whole 9 yards. But I've often wondered if my hesitation to really bite the bullet with my career is because I feel like this is the one area I need to focus in. So that's been something I've been contemplating and struggling with, honestly, for a while now.
Yeah.
But
and I asked you to take that a little bit deeper because I think a lot of people listening to this podcast can relate to that struggle of, I've got this full-time job that pays me, and then I have this side passion, and maybe even multiple side passions, and not knowing what to do with that. And I think it does affect career trajectory in the full-time job.
Because you always feel like you're kind of bifurcating what you really should be doing.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's almost like a way of self-sabotaging in the full-time job. A little bit.
I can see that.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense.
I can definitely see that.
So there's another question I want to ask around goals. The CEO of Daily Worth, Amanda Steinberg, she has a quote, and it says, "Believe me when I tell you that playing big games is just as stressful as playing small games. So why not set higher goals and take a bigger risk?" I mean, have you guys ever noticed that? It takes just as much energy to tackle a really big, scary goal as it does to tackle that, like, medium-sized goal that you set for yourself.
I definitely see that. And releasing the outcome, but enjoying the process. And that's what I've really been focused on this year is I see, not saying that I don't know what my target is, but I'm going to enjoy the process of getting there. So I have this grand goal. And like you said, I'm playing big because I'm releasing the thought of what if this doesn't work? What if this? I'm releasing that thought because if I'm thinking that is subconsciously impacting what I do every single day. Mm-hmm. Because then once something doesn't work out, then I start getting frustrated about the end goal. However, I just focus on enjoying every single moment of the process.
So does that help you with the perfectionism piece of it?
It does.
Mm-hmm.
It does. And it helped me to feel comfortable with setting those grand goals. It helped me to feel comfortable in that, where I released what those expectations are, who's going to say this, or what if this doesn't work, or what if they don't like this, or what if all those negative things that go through our heads when we want to accomplish something. It helped me to release that piece and say, I'm going to strictly focus on this process, and I'm going to enjoy every single moment of this process. And whatever I do, whatever happens, I'm going to learn at the end of the day from whatever I'm doing. And that's helping you, because that's the only moment we have is what we're doing right now.
Mm-hmm. So it becomes a mindfulness practice.
It becomes a mindfulness practice.
Jada, last year you produced Bloom Inclusion Seminar.
Yes.
Ginormous undertaking.
Yes.
Like when you think about all of the moving parts of creating a seminar like that, from getting sponsors to making sure you have the right presenters to me that's an enormous goal. Did you feel like it was an enormous, risky goal?
It was very, very enormous and very risky. And I'm sitting here kind of, thinking about the quote that you just mentioned, and I don't think I agree.
Oh, okay. Please say more.
Because I think that there are all types of goals that you set, and some goals will require more time and more capacity with you and with a team. And then there are some goals that require more investment, whether it's, a dollar amount of investment or leveraging relationships investment. And to me, all those things, you have those things that help you decide, how small, how big, how does it fit within the trajectory of what I have planned for this set amount of time, whether it's a year or 6 months or 3 years. And so I think leaning on enjoying the process is definitely what I'm working on, because I'm one of those impatient people. Like I want to not just get it done, but I want it to get done right. Yes. And I want to enjoy it. Like I want to have fun. Yeah. But then when I don't like it, I want to say I don't like it, so that I can not pretend like I like it, because that's going to frustrate even more. Right. Mm-hmm. So that part I'm really kind of leaning on Victoria and reflecting as we move.
I like that.
All right, so I love that you didn't like that quote. And what I want to know though is, what do you think is the message about making a big risky goal? Like, what advice would you give to people about making? I mean, you took a huge risk in saying, I'm going to do Bloom Inclusion. Mm-hmm. I mean, and once you get that ball rolling, it's pretty hard to walk back from that, right? Like,
exactly. Yes.
So if somebody's going to take a big risk in the way that you did, what advice would you give them around setting a goal like that?
I say test the bigger risk. So Bloom was piloted a couple of times in the last 3 years. And so it was piloted with a smaller group, the same concept of merging industries and ideating around inclusion, but it wasn't done on a large, statewide scale, And so I think when you take big risk, you have to take calculated risk so that you decrease the probability of failing. So if I'm packing up and friends will say, let's pack up and let's just take a road trip. I'm not going to guess if I have gas in the car. You know what I mean? Yeah. We can go and we can go without a plan, but we have to make sure we have
The
fuel.
necessities, yeah.
You know?
That is
Yeah.
a great metaphor.
So I think that, definitely take calculated risk. I took a huge calculated risk when I decided to only work for myself. And I've been working for another organization for 8 years, all of my professional life. And so to do that, there are sacrifices that I had to make. There were things I had to test. There were people that I had to talk to in order to make sure that I was making an informed decision and not an emotional decision. So that's what I would say. I said that I think the essence of the quote is awesome as far as whether big or small, do it.
Right.
But I think
the energy output is almost the same. Do you think that's true?
No.
You don't think that's true?
I don't think that's true.
Interesting.
Because if I plan to work out every day or to talk to my family more often, that's not going to take as much energy as planning a statewide. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And there aren't as many risks. So I think that that's why I don't believe, because the energy is for me, is very different.
Very different.
Yeah.
Love that.
I'm sorry I don't like the quote. What's her name? Maybe I should tweet her and ask her if we can talk more about it.
It's Amanda Steinberg. She's the founder and CEO of Daily Worth. You can have at that if you want to. So something I think that we don't talk enough about is failing at the goals we set. And I love the word failure. I mean, I'm one of those people that embraces the word failure. Because if you're failing, you're learning. It's good to fail hard and fail fast. Like you said, you tested lots of small seminars first.
Yes.
If you had failed consistently and quickly at all of those, you would have been like, I'm not doing Bloom.
Right. Exactly.
Or, you fail and you learn and you change and you do something different. And the more you fail, the more you're able to do. So does anybody have a goal that they keep putting on their vision board each year, or that they keep writing down maybe each month and keep like, I'll get to that next month? Yeah. And so what is it? And why do you think you're doing that? And is there going to be a time when you're like, I'm going to take that off? Or is it going to be, or are we going to come up with some strategies tonight to like make it happen?
Oh gosh. Let's see. I would have to say, going back to, I had to redefine why and my purpose behind it, because for 2 years I had a girl with abs on and I work out all the time, but I also
you have abs.
You do have abs.
You have abs.
So this year I got real clear on why, and so I had to redefine what was my purpose. I want to be healthy. I want to feel good when I wake up. And so, and I want to be athletic versus wanting abs just to look beautiful. Although that's going to, if it comes, I will be very excited about it. But I had to redefine my purpose. And so, but that was one that had been, and I failed at it a few times. And I'm getting there, and it probably will never be where I want it, where I ideally see on images that are given to us and fed to us through society, because I have two children.
Yeah,
right?
They're all
Photoshopped.
But the reality of that is that I wasn't true to it, and I didn't eat the way I needed to eat because it wasn't my goal. It was what I thought I needed to look a certain way to fit a certain image.
Yes.
So then when I had to align it with, what is my goal? What do I really want from this?
I will say that when I had my yoga studio, I was teaching yoga a minimum of once a day, and that's a pretty physical activity. Even if you're not physically doing the practice with them, you're showing some things, you're up and down adjusting. Like, it's a pretty physical practice. And then at the time, I was, to keep myself sane, was running, 3 to 4 times a week, just because it like helped release those endorphins, right? That you need to be happy, and I needed happy endorphins at the time. And since I have let go of the yoga studio, my personal yoga practice has hit the toilet. I will go in and out of things, and it's like, as I'm talking to all of you, I'm like looking at my 2019 goals, and it says, yoga twice a week. And I meditate for the most part on a daily basis. I've had a little January slump out of that, but for the most part, I meditate on a daily basis. And so I feel like that is yoga, but the physical asana practice. And I've equated it to being like in a long-term relationship. And even though I love yoga, I've fallen out of with the physical practice of yoga. And so it might be a little while, but I keep thinking about like, what is it going to take for me to actually commit to that again? So it's on my goal board, and I honestly don't know the answer to that. So I want it, but I don't know how I'm going to fall back in love with the physical practice of yoga.
Can I read something?
Yes, please.
Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just saying, it just sounds like you're still figuring out, is that really
my
something
why
you want? Or is that, something that you know that you need to do? But is there something...
feel a lot better.
Right? Feel a lot better. So then it was just like figuring out why.
Yeah.
Like, what is it?
Yeah. Jada, how about you? What were you going to say?
Well, I was going to share something around failure.
Yes.
But I also have a question for you as well.
Yeah.
I wonder if the disconnect from yoga has anything to do with you've once had a studio before, and that piece is missing in that way. So I wonder if you need to reconnect and love it in a different way. Whether it's instead of your traditional yoga, maybe you need to do some soka yoga or hot yoga, or I don't know,
aerial yoga.
I don't know. I wonder, because I stopped playing basketball because I've had 5 knee surgeries, and I couldn't play or watch basketball for years. If anybody asked me,
even though watching it,
I didn't watch it. I didn't watch it on television. I didn't watch my students play. I, would go and see my nephew and my niece play, but I just didn't like it, and I had to take a break from it for a while because I couldn't be connected to it in that way. I literally couldn't, physically could not do it. And to me, if I couldn't do it that way, I just wasn't going to do it at all. Because there was pain attached to it. So I had to disconnect myself from the pain through rejuvenation, through healing, to allow me to enjoy something that I absolutely love. So I just wondered that when you were sharing, But I wanted to share something that I wrote around mistakes or failure.
Yes,
if that's
please.
okay.
I would love for you to do that.
So it starts, chew on your mistakes. I'm tired of living in a world where people are punished when making mistakes. Imagine what life would be like if we embrace mistakes rather than ostracizing people for making them. I'm not saying we should welcome repeating mistakes. To do the same thing repeatedly to reap the same or no results is insanity. When I began to embrace mistakes as a tool for learning, I began to grow. There was pain and tears, cried along the way, but life is about evolution. If I am not growing, I feel obsolete and ineffective. If things were perfect all the time, then I would not experience progress and I would stay in a stagnant state of boredom. Dr. Oz states, I never regret mistakes. I regret things I never tried. The previous quote was Jada Monica Drew, but that last Dr. Oz.
Dr. Oz.
Yeah.
That's true.
And that took a while to come to that, because I don't
Jada,
like making mistakes. Everything has to be like...
I feel like you and I are such kindred spirits, especially in our writing, because I wrote something very similar to that that's on my blog.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
And I quoted about how the insanity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How about
I'm like,
that?
there's something.
We're sisters. I don't know.
Soul sisters
Soul
in some
sisters.
way.
We're all connected.
Right.
We
Soul
are.
sisters.
Yeah.
I like that.
You gotta chew on
You
those
have
mistakes.
to try. You have to.
Yeah.
You have to.
Well, it's and also knowing when to pack it in. Like, you, Alisha, reshaped my definition of failure. That blog post about the yoga studio and how you failed. Like, my initial response is you didn't fail. Like, you opened it.
Yeah.
You were successful by an outsider's standpoint.
Right.
For a period of time. But your vision wasn't fulfilled.
Right.
To the 100%.
Yeah.
So for me, last year, I decided to run the same crazy, stupid trail half marathon that I did in 2017, knowing full well that I didn't want to do it again. I committed to it. And at mile 6, I tripped on a root and banged up my knee and my ankle pretty badly.
No.
And I met my husband before there's also a creek crossing involved in this thing in late February, which is another layer of crazy. But he told me, you know, do a couple more miles, and when you cross the creek again, if you need to run it in, run it in. He's like, no, nobody here will think any less of you, because if you run injured, you're going to do more harm than good. But my brain was like, you idiot, you tripped and fell, you're not going to finish. You know, you're not gonna meet your goal of beating your time from last year. And I was so fixated on that. And sure enough, when I crossed the creek again, I could feel things starting to go south with my leg, and I'm like, no, I'm not. It's not worth injuring myself to finish this stupid race. But it took me a couple weeks to accept the fact I did finish.
Right.
I ran it in. I crossed the finish line. My kids handed me my medal like they had the year before. But I feel like I might as well have not even done it. And it took me a couple weeks to really realize, you know, you didn't meet your goal the way you wanted to meet your goal, but you kind of proved to yourself that it's okay to call it when it's not going to be what you think it's going to be. When it's not bringing you joy. If it's injuring you, like if this crazy repeated insane act is harming you in some way, whether it's physically or mentally or even spiritually, you need to let go.
That's powerful.
So that was my most recent practice in failure.
That's great.
Only one of them, but you know. But yeah.
I have so many.
And if, you know, mistakes are proof that you're trying.
Yes.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
I've come
something.
to embrace that too.
I like how you said evolution.
Yes.
That, right, evolution. Just with everything, as long as we're evolving and we take from it what we need to take and we leave what we don't so that we can evolve.
Yes.
And it's such a process. You know, I think we're taught that you go to school, you learn the tools, you get the information, you apply it, and you do well, you know? Or someone teaches you something, you apply it, and it's done. But there's so much that we have to experience for ourselves, including failure. I've probably been told multiple things and didn't get it until I did it and failed.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
Right.
And there's such a difference between getting it done right every single time and never learning.
Yeah.
And failing 9 times out of 10, but learning so much. I would rather the latter, you know?
And how we learn is so important too. For instance, in preparing for this particular podcast, which is the first time we've done a little bit of a panel on the podcast, I had to set up the recording equipment in a very different way. And so I kind of tried using this setting last week's episode, and for those of you that listened, the recording quality, my editor did great with what he was handed. We'll put it that way. He did a phenomenal job with what was handed to him. And then he was like, Alisha, I need you to sit down with the manual before this next recording and spend some time. But the interesting thing is, like, the manual, I can read that thing, and, like, it's just Greek to me. So I was like, okay, well, I did what he said. Now I'm going to do it the Alisha way, and I'm going to watch some videos on YouTube and see if I can figure this out. I think, Ira, if you're listening, I know you are. I hope this is much better to those listening, you know. So it was that, like, failing last week and then thinking, okay, well, let's try to learn this in a new way. And so hopefully when y'all are listening to it out there in podcast land, you'll appreciate this recording much better than last week's.
Constantly evolving.
Constantly
evolving.
I like that.
That's right. So maybe moving away from goals that we just keep putting off. I can give a personal example, and I'm wondering if any of you have examples like this, and I'm wondering what you do, specifically what you do when you have something like this. I've written quite a bit of a book, you know, it's a self-help coaching, you know, type book, and It's got, I've got,
I'm
thank
excited.
you.
I want
It's got, I mean, I've not written it all the way, so that's what we're going to talk about. I've written the, I've written the introduction and the first 4 chapters and the proposal, and it's like the shitty first draft of all of those things, right? And it's been on my goal list to get that done for quite a bit of time, and I'm terrified of this picking it back up. You know, when you've had a lot of headway to start,
Yep.
and then so how do you get the momentum to start something back up? When you know it's important, you know you want to do it. Like, I know I'm going to do it, I'm just not quite sure how to begin yet. What would you all do? And do you have something like that in your life?
For me, being beholden to someone else to do it.
Accountability.
So if you have an accountability writing partner, Jada and Alisha, like for me, a lot of the runs that I did last year, I did with a group of friends, and I am the tortoise of the group, but that's okay because they all knew it was important for me to finish this particular medal series that we were doing, and they would always hang around till the end, till I finished, which was typically the end of the race. So for me to bite off a big goal like that, it helps to have people that I know we might not train together, but I know we're doing it at the same time. Or someone to just hold you accountable, not necessarily doing the same thing, but someone that you trust and that you know will kick your butt when you need it, you know? As for doing the creative part, I find that carving out, scheduling the time to do it, and like whether it's an hour or 30 minutes, just sitting down, putting pen to paper, free writing on your computer, because sometimes there is like this block that you don't know is there that you've got to get around or get through, and you never know what will be the thing to do it.
Right.
And so to just get it out of your system kind of is how I've done it in the past. But I mean, accountability for me is where it's at.
Yeah.
It's key.
I second all of that. All of it. You know, I have to find someone or have someone that I'm already connected to hold me accountable. And that might be an editor for you. It might be, you know, someone you've shared this with. So listeners out there.
Leave a comment. No.
You know, it's so fascinating. Coaches are so good at telling other people what they need to do to accomplish their goals.
Yep.
Yet we face the exact same problem. Like, coaches have to have coaches.
Yeah, I agree.
Coaches have to have other people in their lives who will help hold them accountable. And one of the best pieces of advice, actually, I got from my tarot card reader, who is basically my spiritual therapist. Let's just call her what she actually is.
Hey.
It's less about what those cards say, and it's more about like that pep talk that she's actually giving me when we go through the cards. When she knew I was starting out, she said to me, she said, Alisha, she said, everything you do for your clients, you must be doing for yourself.
But you have to have somebody to frame that for you, because the way you frame it for your clients, it will not work for me.
Very
different. Yeah, very, very different. And I would say, you know, getting in, whenever you're trying to meet a goal and you find yourself stuck, go somewhere completely different. Put yourself around people who are completely different, because it will spark something in you. Right. And so, on the last podcast, I was sharing how I started to do retreats every single quarter, where I would schedule just think time, creativity time, reflection time. And I would do things with different groups of people, or go to panels, or there are tons of, like, you know, the TEDx salon, or just different things in the city here in Greensboro, arts events. And it would just spark my interest, or conversation would spark something either new or revitalize my spirit around something that I've done. You know, we're always, I think, in our schedule and routine so much that we don't even allow ourselves to think outside of our own heads.
Yes.
So those are the things that I would suggest. Ditto. And just get outside of your norm.
Yeah. Well, I want to, I feel like we could talk about this all night long, and we're getting there. So what I want to leave listeners with tonight is, if there's a specific goal that you want to achieve, I would highly recommend writing down what that specific goal is. Give yourself a by when date. By when do I want to have this completed? And then to Jada's point, make sure you also write down your aligning vision. So the reason I want this goal is because. And I would say, don't just stop there. Try to find out the reason behind the reason. So,
the value.
Yeah, the value.
Yeah.
Like, step back. Take that 50-foot step back. And think about what is it behind the thing. It's not that I want, it's not like that I want that big S10 truck, which is a true story. Just because I want the S10 truck, I want that S10 truck because of what I think it says about who I am. It's what's behind that, and it's that, I want to be useful. I want to be able to do things with this. I want to be able to beat it up. All those things. So find the reason behind the reason, and then write down what the action steps that you are taking to achieve that goal. And then decide how you're going to measure that progress, and I would say celebrate your wins. So figure out what it is that you're going to do. Am I going to hang out with girlfriends? Am I going to call a friend and tell them that I hit this goal? Am I going to take myself out for dinner? Whatever it is, how will you measure it, and how will you celebrate it?
Can you say those again?
Yeah. So how will you measure the progress, and how will you celebrate wins? And then how will I use primers? So primers are the things that will help remind you what you need to do. So for instance, let's go back to my yoga goal, right? So if I just say, okay, I'm going to do yoga for 10 minutes in the morning. We're going to make it small, easy, measurable, something that I can do. I'm going to lay out my yoga clothes the night before, and I'm going to put my mat right where I'm going to have to walk. That's a primer. If I have to hit the mat before I go to the bathroom, I'm going to remember to get on that mat in the morning. So what are the primers that will help you remember to do it? And then, what are your pitfalls? So what are the things that will keep you from achieving that goal? Write out what the pitfalls are and your plan for overcoming that pitfall. And then to all of your points, when you're so kindly telling me what to do with mine, accountability. Who are you going to ask for help, and who are you going to talk to on a regular basis? And then make this a contract. Write all of these things down and say, this commitment contract, this is my commitment contract to myself, and sign it and date it and post it somewhere where you're going to see it every day. So, I'll put together a little worksheet, a Yoke and Abundance worksheet around that people can download along with this episode. We'll put it in the notes section. But this is our goal setting panel. Thank you all so much for being a part of it.
Thank
you.
you.
Thanks for
Thank
having
you.
us.
Yes.
We hope this episode gave you lots of ideas for taking actions to make your dreams a reality. If you've enjoyed this podcast, please head to iTunes and take a minute to write out a review of what you thought of today's episode. It's amazing how big a difference even a sentence of a review on iTunes can make. If you're loving this podcast, please help us spread the word so that we can keep bringing you these wise words. Don't underestimate how big a difference you can make by simply sharing this podcast on social media or with a friend. Check out our website, yokeandabundance.com, to schedule your free discovery call today. A huge thank you to our sponsor, Triad Local First, and my wonderful editor and producer, Ira Sterling at Julia Sound Recordings. Remember, every one of us has wisdom within. Keep sharing your words of wisdom because you never know who you'll inspire.